Welcome to this week's episode of One-on-One Sports, the tape deck, where we take a look forward and a look back at the things that have happened in sports. I'm Matt Dowdle, and I'm super pleased to be back in our original studio. Let's take a look at the 1 o'clock games from earlier today in the NFL. Alrighty, Kansas City versus Buffalo. Kansas City looking to go 9-0 against undrafted rookie Jeff Toole, who throws a undrafted rookie mistake pick on the goal line to Sean Smith, who will take it all the way down the field for the score. Defense was the name of the game as Kansas City had 2 defensive touchdowns. They win 23-13, going on undefeated. Andy Reid is pleased. New Orleans versus New York. The Ryan brothers before the game taking a family picture. New Orleans trying to go 7-1, but with interceptions like this, that is not going to help your team out toward the end of the second quarter trying to get a score. Geno Smith takes it back the other way, cuts inside, gets in the end zone. New York wins 26-20. New Orleans drops to 6-2, get Dallas next week. Atlanta versus Carolina. Carolina trying to get to 5-3, gain some ground in New Orleans. And when Cam Newton is playing like this, avoiding sack after sack after sack, well, you're probably going to get a win. Find Steve Smith, who gets the ball up the field on a great play all around by the quarterback and the receiver. And then later in the game, right before the half, Cam Newton rolling out right, hits Greg Olsen for the wide open touchdown. Carolina just punishes Atlanta 34-10. They get the win 5-3. Next game up, we got Tennessee versus St. Louis. Both teams trying to get a win, get closer to 500. Jake Locker hands the ball off. And what do you know, St. Louis, you got to make a tackle. But he plows his way into the end zone. Tennessee gets the win 28-21. Despite Zach Stacy's big day, they go 4-4 and have an easy win against Jacksonville next week. Minnesota versus Dallas. Dallas trying to become the one team in the NFC East above 500. And when you're sacking Christian Ponder and company in the end zone, ball's out, fumble, touchdown. Dallas gets a free defensive touchdown, and Tony Romo, not known for his clutchness, getting the late touchdown to Dwayne Harris in the fourth quarter. Yep, 27-23. Dallas wins 5-4. Got New Orleans next week. Finally, San Diego versus Washington. Mike Shanahan would love a win for the Redskins. They need one. They're still in the chances to win the division. If they get a win, stopping Danny Wood is essential, and they do. But San Diego gets first and goal, second and goal, third and goal. They cannot complete to get the fourth and goal field goal. It sends it to overtime, but Washington runs down the field, plows into the end zone, gets the win. They're 3-5, still in it in the NFC East. All right, now that we've taken a look at the 1 o'clock games, let's take a step back and go to college football. Heisman watch. I think we all know the biggest 3 names to watch right now are Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston, and Johnny Manziel. All big names, and for all different reasons, but let's see who we think is the top 3, at least in my book. Number 3 has to go right now with Manziel. Statistically, off the charts. The guy is a highlight reel waiting to happen every single game. Throws for a lot of yards, runs for a lot more, touchdowns across the board. But the issue with him is he hasn't won the big games. He lost to Alabama, and that wasn't a great job. If you want to be a Heisman candidate, you have to win in these big games. And you can't just win, you have to blow people out. And that's where I get to my number 2 guy, Marcus Mariota. He's undefeated for Oregon, 8-0. And when they win big. The offense is stellar. He has a lot of weapons around him, but he knows how to utilize them, and he rarely makes mistakes. He's been a great quarterback all year long, and looks to continue to do that for the rest of the stretch of the year. But my number 1 is Jameis Winston. Why? Because when he plays in big games, he wins big. Clemson was supposed to beat Florida State. If anything, it was going to be a close game. And he went in to Clemson's house and shut them down. Same thing happened against Miami. Previously unbeaten, Florida State goes in there and demolishes them. Sure, Winston did not have his best game in the world, but he still led them to a 41-14 victory, in which case it wasn't even close. Same thing happened when they played Maryland. They won 63-0. As a whole, between those 3 games against top 25 teams, they won 155-28. That's a huge gap. And that's why I think Jameis Winston right now is the number 1 candidate. He doesn't make mistakes. He knows how to win the small games by a lot. He knows how to win the bigger games even bigger. And that's a huge deal, especially for the rest of the year. If they can go undefeated, and if they can go ahead and get to number 2 in the standings and get lined up to play Bama, Jameis Winston is my my number 1 candidate to be your Heisman winner. On the other end, just to make people be aware, Bryce Petty, Baylor, if he can win some big games, he hasn't had an opportunity to shine in those sort of scenarios yet, but if he can, he could sneak in there as well. Just keep an eye on him. Now let's go back to the NFL, away from college football, and let's talk about the Denver Broncos and John Fox. Unfortunately, we found out that John Fox is required to have surgery on his heart because, well, he's having issues that he thought he could make it through the season and deal with in the offseason. Unfortunately, while playing golf, things came up, and now he has to have surgery, and he's off the team for the foreseeable future. Defensive coordinator Jack Del Rio looks like he's going to be the one to step in to be interim coach, but what we do know for sure is the entire coaching staff is going to have to step up in a number of ways in order to make an impact and try to keep making the Denver Bronco train rolling as beautifully as it is. The question is, how will this affect Denver? Well, on the face value, obviously players may be more motivated to play well. Their coach is in the hospital. We want to play this season for coach. We want to finish it off, and that's obvious. Obviously, there may be struggles. Well, your head coach, that's a huge person to be missing. You might as well chop off the head of your team. Your quarterback could be gone. He's an important person. Obviously, that's going to damage them, but that's the obvious stuff. Let's look a little deeper. If there's any team that could afford to have this happen, it is Denver. You have arguably the best play-calling quarterback who changes plays and does pre-snap reads, and Peyton Manning that we've seen in probably 20 years. Peyton Manning is great at that, and frankly, we're going to see how he has to respond for the next couple of weeks without John Fox. We're also going to have to see how Jack Del Rio and the rest of the coaching staff steps up, or how much leeway they give to Peyton to pretty much run this entire offense. It's going to be something interesting to see, but one thing we can take away for sure is that we hope John Fox does have a speedy recovery and that his health will be fine in the future and that this doesn't ultimately derail what has been so far an awesome season for the Denver Broncos. Now, staying with the NFL, another upsetting incident. Jonathan Martin, a tackle for the Dolphins, has taken an excused absence for the Dolphins as a result of bullying. He's a second-year tackle, and he's been starting all this year, and it's been a great point on their offensive line. So without him, obviously the Dolphins are a little bit weaker. But it's sad to see that bullying is an issue as to why a player is forced to leave the team. On the face value, you know that early-year players, rookies, second-year, third-year players, there is a degree of hazing, to put into words, that happens in the NFL. It's no secret, but it's limited to stuff that you think are carry the pads off the field. Maybe they have to do some sort of karaoke in front of the rest of the team. Silly things. They're embarrassing, but they're all fun love. It's for team bonding and team building. But unfortunately, there's been stories that have come out where maybe the team players all call him Big Weirdo. Or maybe when he comes down and sits down with them at lunch and puts his tray down, other players have gotten up and left the table because they don't want to sit next to him. If that's the entire environment that you're forced to work in, I'd want to leave too. It's frustrating, it's saddening, and frankly, it's almost pathetic. These are a bunch of 20 and 30-year-old men who are still bullying while they're new guys. This isn't middle school, this isn't high school, heck, it's not even college. Grow up. Now, granted, we don't know everything that happens. None of us are in their locker room, we're not there with them 24/7, but there's no way a player left the team if there wasn't a reason to feel some hurt. Where are the veteran players? Why are they not stepping in the way of other players saying, hey, cut it out, this doesn't fly here? And why are some of the younger players, or any player who's picking on Martin to the degree that made him want to leave the team for some period of time, why did they feel like that was necessary? To me, it's a sign of disrespect amongst players, a sign that the coaching staff needs to step in and handle this situation because there's no way that they didn't know at least something was going on. And a sign that Jonathan Martin is probably going to be looking for a new team. And that stinks if you're a Dolphin fan because he's been quite a strong point on the line. All in all, between the news about Coach John Fox and Jonathan Martin, it's been a sad week in the NFL. But let's take a look ahead at tomorrow night's game between Green Bay and Chicago for perhaps what should be a brighter spot for this weekend in the NFL. Green Bay is looking to establish themselves as leaders in this division and get themselves back into the upper echelon of teams in the NFL. Teams like Seattle, San Francisco, New Orleans, they've been stepping up in the NFC, and Green Bay needs to get ready to come join them. If they can beat Chicago, who's not been particularly great this year, but is still pretty good, that's a great step forward. That'd be great for Green Bay, for Rodgers, for Jordy Nelson, and the entire team as a whole, especially considering that they're missing some of their receiving core. Jarrett Boykin's been forced to come up and play well, and he has. Let's see if they can get a win against Chicago. On the flip side, Chicago needs this win. They want to start making themselves come into and be a strong point in the division, and it all starts with being able to beat Green Bay. Matt Forte's been on a tear this year. Give him the ball. Brandon Marshall is one of the best receivers we have in the NFL. Give him the ball. And most importantly, we know that when Green Bay and Chicago face off, it is going to be a huge matchup, full of emotion, full of fire, and both teams are going to be going about 120% at each other until the whistle blows at the end of the fourth quarter. Make sure you tune in and watch it because there's certainly going to be an exciting and fiery game. That's all the time that we have for this episode of One-on-One Sports, the Tape Deck, but don't worry, come back next weekend and we'll be ready to talk all about all the awesome things that have happened in sports.